Just start the recording again. All right, so hopefully you got to where I was talking about was to disarm the system, you always need to enter a code to disarm. As I was mentioning before, if you enter the code wrong, so instead of entering 1, 2, 3, 4, if you accidentally push 1, 2, 3, 5, hit the clear button, we'll clear it so you can enter that code again. And if you enter your code wrong more than a set number of times that you can set, is that you'll get the lockout of the keypad for a period of times as well. Okay, when you arm the system or disarm, you've got up the top line the status, and that can either be ready to arm. So ready to arm, it's showing here area 1, but you can name that area. You can name that to be, office area, main home, whatever you want to call it. It can be force ready. In other words, it's ready to arm, but there's a zone that's unsealed. Perhaps the PIR looking at the keypad that is looking at it and it's not ready. It's ready to arm. We're going to force arm. We can also come up not ready, meaning that if there's perhaps a back door, back window that's open, a warehouse roller door that's still open, that's not allowing you to arm the system, you've got to close that first, is that will then cause the system not to be armed. If not ready is visible up there and the customer still tries to arm the system, so if it's got not ready, and of course they never look at that and they just arm the system 1, 2, 3, 4, the system will then give you the keypad will give you a long beep, and then via the internal speakers it will tell you the zone that's not ready. It'll say, for example, the name, it might say zone 10 if you've left it as default, or it might say back door is violated, please close door before arming. So you go back and shut the door, put your code in again to arm it. It might say back window is violated, and you've got to go shut the back window. Now you come back and arm it. So whenever it's not ready, it won't allow you to arm. And ready with a bypass means that you've bypassed a zone, maybe because the back door, the reed swap fallen off the door, or the door's been replaced, hasn't got the magnet waiting for the technician to come in. So you can bypass that zone. To bypass a zone is with the bypass button here. You simply hit bypass the zone that you want to bypass. For example, if I want to bypass zone 5, I push bypass, 5, bypass, and zone 5 is bypassed. Now that's set up without a code. If you're setting up that you need a code, it will then be bypassed. It'll prompt you to enter your user code, or say, please enter user code. Enter your user code, example 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it allows you to go 5, then bypass, to bypass that zone. Handy little hint, if you don't know what the zone number is that's violated, even though it's going to tell you, or you've got multiple zones that it's, I want to bypass 5 zones, and I don't want to go bypass 5, bypass 8, bypass 16, bypass, etc., to bypass the zones. So if you go bypass 0, 0, I think it's 0, 0, 0, bypass, it will bypass all zones that are unsealed at that time. Okay, so it's a way of bypassing and unbypassing all zones. We've also got a chime button. A chime button is typically used for commercial premises, to tell somebody coming into the store, somebody coming into drive-in bottle shop, for example. So what you can do is you can activate the chime button, the keypad chime. So when they walk in, the keypad will give a chime. You can activate a voice. So as people walk in, it will say, showroom motion detector activated, or warehouse, visitor in bottle shop, or whatever you've named that zone. If you select keypad and chime, then what's going to happen is it's going to chime the keypad and give the voice enunciation from the speakers. And then the other one is it's off. So you can turn the chime off. So it allows the customer in a store to be able to go, maybe they don't want it chiming all day, but when they go out for lunch out the back of the shop, is they can go to the keypad, turn chime on, maybe turn chime to voice so they'll hear it coming out the back. When they're back from lunch, they can then turn chime off. So you can turn the chime on and off via the keypad, or perhaps you can just do it via zone. They can have a switch out the back, turn that off, that zone on. That will then, in the panel, in the programming, say whenever that's on, put it in the chime mode. Whenever it's off, turn it off chime mode. So that's how you turn the chime on and off from the keypad anyway. When there's zones unsealed, so for example, it's up the top saying not ready, when you view violated zones, what that will do, it'll show you all the zones that are not violated. On this example, it's showing zone 3 is not ready, and it's showing zone 3 because we haven't changed it. In programming, we can give that a name: front door, back door, warehouse, roller door. So when you hit view violated zones, it might say zone 3 not ready, warehouse, roller door. So therefore you can, it will give you the name. Then you've got the up and arrow. So if you had, for example, 5 zones not ready or 5 zones violated, when you view them, you then say, right, that's the first one. You hit the up arrow, the next one, the next one, the next one, and you can cycle through them to see, which zones are violated at that time. We then got function buttons. On the Navigator keypad, there's 6 function buttons available. And you'll see the first 2 is on the main panel, on the main screen here. In this example, it's got F1 equals fire, F2 equals police. So when we program, we can change those to whatever we want. So that button is F1. When I push it, it's going to activate a fire alarm. When I hit F2, it's going to activate a police or a 24-hour siren. If I change that to front gate, then in programming, I type in front gate for that one, and the F1 equals fire will change to front gate. F2 might be pool pump. That'll change to pool pump on there. So it comes on the name of the button when you do your programming. To show the other function buttons, we then hit show function buttons, and what that will do is change that to F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, F6. So you see all 6 function buttons when I hit that. But on the main screen, we see the main 2. Okay, and we do that. If you get a Navigator keypad and it comes up with sync required on there, it's because you have to then go into the keypad, go to menu, go to next page, and there's a button called synchronization. What that will do, that goes to the panel, gets all the data, and will put the button that populates the name on the button. So if it's saying synchronize because it's a brand new system, go to synchronize, and then it will get the data out of the panel and populate the buttons, etc. for you. To access the menu on the keypad, when we push the menu button on the keypad, depending what we want to do, general access, you don't need a code. Master access, you need a master code, and the default master code is 3456. And installer access, it then goes, as we mentioned before, to go to installer programming, it's 172839. So when I hit the menu button, it will come up with the main first page. I can get to automation functions, reset smoke detectors, do a walk test, log history, etc. And then I can hit installer programming. So if I hit menu, installer programming, it'll ask me for installer code, which is 172839. So the keypad will come up. I can enter that code in, and I can get in it. If I get master access, like change a user code, when I press change user code, it's going to prompt me for a code. I can then put either installer or master code in there. So as default out of the factory, the first 5 options, automation, reset smoke detector, walk test, log history, and status, I don't need a code for those first 5. Via programming, I can program it that yes, you do need a code, and then which of the codes can access it. But as default out of the factory, the first 5 doesn't need a code at all. The next 3 is 6, 7, and 8, change user code, system setting, etc. You do need a master code for those ones. So when I enter change user code, of course, or change the system settings, I need a master code to do those. To get in installer programming, I need to press the installer code, enter the installer code for it. Things like synchronize, keypad screen, clean the screen, etc., then I don't need a code for those. If I went automation button, it comes up with 3 options. I can activate tasks, I can activate outputs, I can activate lights. So there's like a sub menu in there. One of the handy ones is walk test an area. The customer wants to walk test an area. So with the walk test, when you push the walk test area, I think it comes up, you then go and walk test. As you go and you activate each particular zone, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, or as you walk around the premises, it will then enunciate through the speakers what zone you just activated. You walk into the front, open the front door, it'll say front door activated. Walk into the master bedroom, it'll say master bedroom PIR activated. If I go in the living room activated. Perhaps go into the warehouse motion detect activated. It'll talk the zone speakers, and when I come back, it's going to say, for example, on this example, 0 of 11 zones tested for that area. As we walk around, it will then activate those zones. Oh, okay. Looks like we have a small issue of seeing the right screen. A few technical problems. Don't you love modern technology? Okay, let's carry on. So this was a page I was saying before. So these first 5 options here, automation, smoke detector, etc., you don't need a code as default. For change user code, system settings, etc., you do. Install the program mode, you need installer code, etc. And then you need the master code. When we do walk test, as I said, you click on the walk test button. And when we go walk test, what that will do, it'll tells us how many zones we've tested in that area. And as we walk around, it'll, as I mentioned, it'll test there. When we come back, if there's only 10 of 11 tested, and you think, well, I'm sure I tested them all, you can then click on the view zones not tested. So when I click on there, for example, it might say zone 1 not tested, or zone 10 not tested, or whatever zone it was. From there, I might be, that's a reed switch on the manhole cover, or person hole as we call it now. So when we do that, then you know that hasn't been tested, or that we didn't open the back window, we didn't test that. So it's a nice quick way. You don't have to arm the system, have sirens activating, because when you normally tell the end user, you should test the system every month, they're testing if they ever do. The testing would be they arm the system, wait near the front door, they open the front door, hear the entry beeps, wait for the siren to ring for a couple of seconds, disarm the system and say, yep, my whole system is working. This way, they walk test and will actually test every zone on the system without having all the sirens ringing, everything like that. It's a lot better, more secure way, and logs when they did the test. The other common question asked is, I want to use the one keypad and arm every area in the system. And this is obviously when it's split up. And it could be a basic system like a house and a garage. House is area 1, garage is area 2. It might be a hotel where you might have the bottle shop is area 1, the kitchen is area 2, the warehouse is area 3, the office area upstairs is 4, the dining area is area 5. Trying to think of other areas, but you have multiple areas on a premises. So what you can do to arm other areas from the one keypad, on the Navigator keypad, it's a lot easier. We've added a button called Select Area. So it says, look, I want to arm that particular area there, shown in the map. So when we go select areas, I can do it 2 different ways. The easiest way is then brings up a list of all the areas. Click on the bottom, that button that says Control All Areas. And when I go Control All Areas, it's going to tell me all the areas that I'm allowed to go to, because it'll ask me for a user code. So when I go select area, it asks me to enter a user code, and will only show me the areas that user code's allowed to get to. So when I've entered there, on this example, area 1 I'm not allowed to know, and areas 5 to 8. So I can only see areas 2, 3, and 4 as an example. If I'm allowed to all areas, it'll show me all 8 areas. Where it's got area 2, area 3, area 4, you would have the name of the area coming up: office, factory, warehouse, etc. But it shows me the current state. In this example, area 2 is disarmed, area 3 is disarmed, 4 is disarmed, etc. So if I want to arm it, because I've already entered my code in, I just push on that button. It will toggle it to the opposite state. Okay, so I would push menu, select area. It asks me for a user code. I then control all areas, and it brings me up a list of them. And all I have to do is go 2, it will arm it. 3 will arm it. 4, 5, 6, 7, if I'm allowed to all those areas. So I just go there, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, it will arm those areas. The same in reverse. When I come in the morning, if I want to disarm certain areas from the one keypad, I come in, enter my code that disarms the area that I'm in, let's say area 1. And because I've just entered my code, I can then go select area. It won't ask for my code again because it's smart enough to know if you've just entered it. So I go select area, and it shows me the status of all the area. Then I can just go push button 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's going to disarm areas 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nice and simple like that. It toggles the areas to the opposite state. And if you said, oops, I didn't want to disarm area 6, I simply hit 6 again, and it toggles it from disarm back to arm state again. So it's a nice, simple way of arming all the areas from the one keypad without having to cycle up this area and get into that area and select what I wanted to do, etc., etc. All right, is there any questions at all, apart from the technical issues we had during that session, in the operation of the panel before we get into the programming? All right, looks quite good. All right, let's move on to the programming of the panel. Within the programming, you can program it via 2 different ways. You can program the whole panel, you can program 90% of the panel from the keypad. You can't program automation functions from the keypad. You can control the automation functions, turn lights on and off, etc., but you can't program lights, outputs, etc. from the keypad. It can only be done from the LKP programming software. From the RP programming software, you can program everything. So when you get into multiple zones, etc., it's a lot easier to program from the software. So we'll cover the programming of the software. When you first connect to a panel, it does what we call conflict resolution. It checks what's in the database of the panel and checks what's in the panel itself, and will show you any differences. As an example of that is that, let's say that we've programmed the panel previously, but the customer has gone in via the keypad and made some changes to user codes. So when I connect with RP now, it'll do conflict resolution. It says, well, this is what's in my RP database. This is what's in the panel. There's some differences of users. And it will then show you user 3, user 5, user 8, or whatever users the customer's changed. They're the difference. So then you can do, what do you want to do? I can receive everything to the panel, or I can download everything or send everything from the database to the panel. In that example, you would probably receive everything to the database because the customer made the changes. You don't want to unchange what he's done. It could also be that somebody else is connected with RP, one of the other techs in your organization is connected, and now when you're connected with your software, it's different from what he's done, so again, you can save it. Or it might be the other way around. You've got the latest database, but you've done some programming changes in the office, so now we want to download into the panel. Okay, so you connect, it says, these are all the conflicts. Yeah, that's fine because I've made changes in the software and I now send it to the panel. So when we download or upload, when we download into the panel, we download everything in the system. User names, user numbers, keypad names, zone names, everything. So if, for example, your hard drive on your computer fails and you didn't have a backup of the database, when you connect to the panel itself and you get the conflicts, because it says, hey, the software's new, nothing in the database at all, but I've got all the data in the panel, you can receive everything to database and you've got everything in there, even including all the automation rules. To connect to the system, you can either plug RS-232 directly from your laptop or your computer directly into the RS-232 port of your computer, of the panel, or alternatively, you can program via the M1 Ethernet module, either local or remote. So you can, if you're local on site, you can connect. If you've got an Ethernet module, it'd have to port forward, but if you've got an Ethernet module, you can be in your office and the customer wants a change done, you can just open up RP, connect directly to the panel and do whatever program changes required remotely as well, and just charge him for a service call. Okay, and also ELK-RP, and we'll have a look at this with the rules engine, that apart from the normal security functions that are standard in the panel, you can program virtually anything imaginable. As I say, if you can dream it, we can program it into the panel. We'll probably, let's leave the program, this Death by PowerPoint at the moment, and let's open up a real live RP panel. Okay, so you should be seeing my RP program I've got opened here. Let's just start from new. If I went to a new account, so when you open up RP for the first time, in the background around here, you wouldn't have all those in there. There's some panels I've got in my database, but it'd be nothing in there. Then what you do is you click on the new button up here. So if I cancel that, you would click on new and opens this window up. And hopefully you can see my window, another window. There we go. It's popped up now. You then put in the account ID, and that account ID can't be changed later. It's a name in the database of what you want to call this panel. You know, Smith's Residence, you know, Nest Melbourne office, or whatever you want to call it. Every panel will be an M1 Gold. There's various ones there. There's an M1 Standard and Easy 8. We only ever sell the M1 Gold now, so it's the M1 Gold. You must know the serial number before you connect as a security function, because the panel's hidden away, so you have to know the security serial number. So you enter the serial number in here, and the default RP access code. The RP access code as default is 246801. Okay, so it's a different number than the installer code. So you must know the RP access code to be able to connect. Now, obviously, if it's a new panel, it will be the default code because you haven't connected to it to change it yet. Once you've connected to the panel, you can change that RP access code to something else. However, if you do, there's a nice big red warning there. If you change it, once you connect, if you change the RP access code from 246801 to something else, and you forget what that is, you must bring the panel back to us. There's no backdoor in the system to be able to backdoor and default it or do whatever to be able to get back into that panel again. So you have to bring it back to us to default it to get back into it. So if you do change the RP access code, make sure that you do record what you've changed it to if you're going to change it. Okay, so once you've done that and we hit OK, then what we do, if I just call this test, I haven't got the serial number. I can just put in all zeros for now because the panel's getting installed by a tech and you're in the office going to program it, or they haven't got the panel yet. So you can just put that in. And when we generate it, it will put the serial number of all zeros over here. It's telling us up in the gray area up the top what the hardware version, what the firmware version. That grey area gets picked up from the panel when we first connect. So we can't, it's not highlighted there at the moment because we haven't connected to the panel yet to know what that what the firmware version, etc. is. When I said that we download everything into the panel, the only thing we don't download is this section here, which is the database. It's laid in the database. For example, you might put here the name of the customer, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith at their address. You can put them in folders, so you can put in there all your demos, or your office, or your monitored customers, your non-monitored customers. You know, you can have all the customers in groups. So when we go back, instead of one great list of all your customers, you can have them in various folders to group them together, make it easier. You can also got the phone numbers and some notes in there. You know, panel is installed here. We did a service call on this job time at this time. We changed the battery. We did this. So you've got some notes you can relate. All that is stored inside the RP database. Up the very top line, hopefully you can see, it's got where its program's kept in C program data RP, and it's elk accounts 2.mdb. If you back up that elk accounts 2.mdb database, it will back up all your data. Every account customer that you've got of M1, it will back it up. So if your hard drive fails on your computer, you haven't lost any of the accounts, you can load RP on your new computer, copy that file back again, and you've got all your customers back again. If for some reason you need to send us a copy of the database, or you just want to back up that one data, one customer only, you can go File, Export Account, give the name of that you know, account. In this example, it's elk account RB. Wherever you want to do it, you can give it another name, smithsresidence.exp, and when you back that up, it just backs that one customer only up. Okay, so that's export and import, just one, but that folder does all of them. If we've already got some customers already created, which I do, I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to save that. And I've got a list of all my customers. There's some here that are grouped together, etc., that we might do it. Okay, or I'll look at all my customers, and I'm going to connect the training room panel. So when I select the training room, it says I've connected to this panel before. It knows what firmware version is in the panel. It knows when I last connected. I last connected on the 11th of May. It knows my serial number. It knows what the RP code is. If I want to change that RP code, which again, it gives you a warning. Sure, you want to change it. If you do, make sure you record it, because there is a factory charge for defaulting it. So we'll better not change it then. And we can connect to the panel. And it's very much, the software is like Windows Explorer that everyone knows how to use. So Windows Explorer, when I click on perhaps users on the left-hand side over here, it will then show me a list of all the users. I can expand that tree and get a list of all the users down the left-hand side. And when I select a particular user, we get data related to that user. If I click on users and we get a list of all of them, I can't change the programming of that user from this mode. I can only view them all. You'll notice that some users have got a 4-digit number and some have got a long code. And we'll explain what that is, I guess now, is that the long code is showing me straight away that we have a WIGAN card number. But I'm going to select user 2. And I can either click on the left-hand side of user 2 or double-click here, and we open up all the settings for that user. I'm just checking if it's coming up on your screen. Okay, so I think it's coming up now. So user 2, a lot of it's hopefully self-explanatory, and all the programming usually on an M1 is self-explanatory. You give the name, the user a name, in this example, Harry Smith. What the user code's going to be. In this example, it's 1234. If you want to change that and you don't want to think of your own, I can hit generate and it will randomly generate a new code for me. So if I hit generate, It's changed it to 6307 9610, and every time I hit that, it will come up with a different code for us until we get one we like. If it's going to be a prox card, so we're going to give this person a card, so or let's say we leave that. We're going to have user 2 as being a user code for Harry Smith, 8267. And if I went to another user, let's say user 3, and I've got this Fred Jones card, but let's call this Harry's card. Okay, so what happens if I had a 4-digit code? For example, just go take off for a card from being a card. So at the moment it's a 4-digit code, and that's all it is. If I want to make it a prox code, you'll see the length of that user code there is fixed to where my mouse is. When I change it and say is going to be a prox card, when I click that button to be a prox card, you notice that expanded a lot longer. And now I put in, on a normal prox card, as you know in 26-bit Weirgan, it's a 3-digit site code and a 5-digit card number that's printed on the card usually. So as an example, if the site code printed on the card was, say, 123, and the card number was 12345, as I type 12345 as the card number, you'll notice the user code up here, that number is changing. So let's change the the card number to 12345. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and that long number is the raw Weirgan card number that's encrypted, that gets downloaded into the panel for card site code 123, card number 12345. Okay, so when I save that and I go back to users, Harry Smith's PIN code in this example is 8267, and that's going to be his long card number, which means nothing to us. But if I open Harry's card number again, and there, I'll just wait to make sure it comes up on your system, you'll see that that's site code 123, card number 12345, etc. Okay, so that's how you enter a card number rather than a PIN code. Let me just go back to PIN code here. So once we're back to a typical keypad PIN code, what areas is this person allowed to go to? If its system's broken up into various areas, factory, office, warehouse, storeroom, or whatever, is this person allowed into those areas? You select the users, the areas, toggles them on and off as we tick. Okay, so we can tick them on, tick them off, nice and simple. Can he arm, can he disarm, can he bypass zones? So is Harry Smith allowed to bypass zones? If he's not allowed, if he's just a normal worker, he's not allowed to bypass zones, you turn that off, etc. If it's an access card, then we click the access box. So when we badge the card, it will disarm the system in the morning because we've got disarm. And every time then he badges a card, if the access box ticked, it's just going to allow him access through the door, access through the door, access through the door, etc. If he wants to arm when he's going home using his card, or if we're on the card there, if it was a card that is, then what he would do would be simply hit the exit button on the keypad and then badge the card. That tells the system, I want to exit, I'm leaving, badge the card to arm the system. If he just badges a card only, it unlocks a door for him to get out. But if he wants to arm it, he hits exit and then badges a card, or you could do it the other way around, badge a card and hit the exit button, but normally you're obviously out by then. And is the code a master code, etc. as well. And on the keypad, when we went to menu and the very first 5 options didn't have a code, if we set the system up needs a code, then it's saying, is Harry one that needs a code on those first 5 menus if it was enabled? Okay, so we get very simple programming for each user, and we go to the next user, next user, and so on till we get all the users. If I go to areas and I select a particular area, and the area, we can name it, I've just named area 2 on this example here. I've named it Nest Security Area 2, Warehouse Area 3 in this example here. So under the warehouse, I just give it the name, and that's the name that would come up on the keypad if under the area name. And you put in your entry exit times, you select various options, and this is where, as default, single key press arm would be enabled out of the factory. This is where I recommended take the quick arm off, and the quick arm, untick that option there for that area, single key press quick arm, turn that off. So now what happens is that if there's a zone unsealed, like a PIR looking at the keypad, then what happens is if that option turned off, I simply need to go just enter my code, will arm the system, enter my code, disarms it. If I had that option on and I hit the exit button, it's going to say, you sure you want to arm the panel? If you do, enter your code to verify, which is a bit crazy. Just quick explanation of some of these other options. Auto stay mode after exit mode. If I quickly bring my PowerPoint back up again and scroll up to where our keypads was, you notice there the exit button, bring this up, the exit button and stay button is next to each other. And to put it into stay mode, I arm the button and push stay mode, and we're now watching TV down there. But occasionally what happens, a customer by mistake, without thinking, because they've had a few red wines while they're watching a movie, they arm the system and hit the exit button by mistake, not the stay button. And next thing you know, the system's armed, they move in front of the PIRs 30 seconds later, whatever period of time, bang, it goes into alarm, and they say the system's faulty because it should have gone stay mode, it went to exit mode, because the buttons next to each other, they hit the button by mistake. So what this option here does, when we come back, auto stay mode after exit time if no violated. If I turn that option on, then what happens is I arm the system, and if I've armed it into away mode by mistake instead of stay mode, or when I've armed it into away mode, if I physically haven't left the building, I haven't gone through an entry exit zone, the system is smart enough to know you've armed the system but you haven't left yet. It will automatically take it from away mode and put it into stay mode, and just put the perimeter on, not the downstairs or the PIRs, whatever you've got set. Okay, so we'll automatically do it, knowing, well, occasionally the customer hits the exit button instead of stay button by mistake. If you're going to arm and disarm via radio keys, however, therefore never use this option, because if you're outside, you've driven out the garage, shut the garage door, use the remote control to arm the system, radio key, then it's going to arm the system, but then it doesn't see an exit zone being activated because you're already outside. It's still going to put into stay mode. Okay, so if you're arming with radio keys, then don't use that option there. Restart exit timers, it just allows you that if you perhaps you've got your perimeter on and you want to let the dog in and out, for example, you don't have to then disarm the system, open the door, let the dog out, arm the system, dog wants to come in, you're disarming the system, open the door, let the dog in, arming the system into stay mode. With this reset exit timer button option selected, all you physically need to do to let the dog out is you push the exit button on the keypad that's near the door, and it will automatically start the entry exit time. So you hit the exit button, it will start the exit time, open the door, let the dog out, shut the door, you don't have to do a thing. Dog wants to come in again, hit the exit button, open the door, let the animal in, and it will automatically do that. However, if an intruder breaks in, if they open the door, then push the exit button, it's too late. They've opened the door before hitting the exit button, still there's an alarm. Okay, so that's that one. And the last one I'll just explain here, the second last, is enable closing callback or ringback. So what happens is if I select that option, when it's going back to a control room, when I arm the system, it will then ring the control room. When the control room kisses it off, it would say call closing signal acknowledged, because it's enabled closing ringback. It's going to give us a message when it gets a message back from the control room to say they've got the closing report. So you know your dialer's working. They know the control room's there. It's got the system. Everything's working fine when the customer's leaving. Last one I want to show you is on the right-hand side here, stay key scrolling. Remember I said that you can scroll between stay instant, night instant. So in this instance here, we've only got stay instant enabled. So when the customer hits the stay button, it's only ever going to go to stay instant. Every time they hit stay, it's not going to cycle through because that's the only option. If I had all of them ticked, or stay instant and night instant ticked, if I hit stay, it's going to go from stay instant, hit stay again, it'll go night instant, stay instant, night instant. It cycles between the ones that are selected. Okay, if I go across to keypads, the keypads here, we give the keypad a name. Front door, back door, manager's office, warehouse keypad, or whatever you call it. So you have given it the name. What area does this keypad belong to? So if it's perhaps in the warehouse is area 2, we then assign that as an area 2 keypad. So when I enter my code on that keypad, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to arm area 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, that keypad will disarm that particular area is assigned to. We select other criteria for that keypad, silent entry, exit. Do you want to show the date and time? If the keypad's going to bypass, does this keypad need a code? So we tick that if it's in a public area, requires a code, so not anyone can just walk up to that keypad, hit the bypass button and bypass zones. You need a code from on there. The 6 function buttons on the keypad, or this example here, it's a KP2 keypad, 4 function buttons, the other 2 grayed out. This is where we set up when do you want that keypad to do it. Let's go to the navigator keypad. There's our navigator keypad. That's the arming station, navigator keypad. Okay, so they're the 6 function buttons on our navigator keypad, which is set for address number 4 in our system. So as default, they will most likely, keypad 1 comes out for police, fire and medical set in here. So if we drop down, it will go down, generate a fire alarm, etc. Unless you're going to use police, fire and medical, my recommendation is to disable the buttons here. Disable them here. It doesn't mean that the function buttons aren't going to do something. We enable it when we get down to rules. Okay, so we've disabled the function buttons from doing anything in here. We'll enable them later, so F1 can do something different, F1 can do something, and so on. When do you want that button to illuminate? When do you, the backlighting on that, behind that button, can light when anything occurs. So as an example, I want that backlight to light up when the garage door is open. So that garage door might be connected to zone number 4. So I'd go in here and scroll down. So when you can see anything in the system can light up that there. So I scroll all the way down, because it could be when an area state. So when area 7's armed, that button will light up. When another area is armed, it will light up. Okay, but I scroll all the way down. There we go, zone state. Might have helped if I've selected a different one. Okay, so when zone 4 state is in alarm or unsealed, I should say, that light's going to light up. So whenever if the garage door was monitored by zone 4, whenever the garage door is up, F1 button's going to light up. When garage 4 is down, the zone's sealed, that light will go out. We then got other options across here. Invert the light. It'll be the other way around. So when it's sealed, the light will be on, and when it's unsealed, the light will be off. So you can have it the other way around for whatever reason. I can blink the light. So now what will happen is whenever the zone 4 is unsealed, instead of that light coming on, it's going to flash. So it's going to draw my attention to it because it's flashing. Okay, going to blink the light on and off, on and off. As soon as it's sealed, the blinking stops. Requires a code. So I've got the illumination button, and the function button is when we push the button, what's going to happen, and when do I want the light to light up. I can have them in sync. So under programming, under automation, I can put whenever I hit F1, open the garage door, and then I've got whenever the garage door is unsealed to light the light up. Okay, nice and simple. But I might be, where the keypad is, I might be able to look out the window and see if the garage door is up or shut. So F1 might be whenever I push F1, it's going to turn the front porch light on or the back porch light on. Okay, so it can do the same thing. It can be linked together. What activate and when it lights up can be the same, or when I hit F1 can do one thing, and when it illuminates can do a different thing. But over here requires code. If I select requires code, now when I push F1, and let's keep it simple, when I hit F1 it's going to open the garage door. And if I've got requires a code ticked, when I hit F1, it's then going to prompt me enter my code to verify I've got a valid code before it's going to activate whatever we want it to activate. If I untick requires code, as soon as I hit F1, it's going to activate it. The next one is single press. If I don't hit single press, then what it will do is that under the zone name, that's the name that's going to be on the button. Okay, so if I put under that button there, if I push garage door, okay, so I type in garage door there, what's going to happen is it's then going to, when I synchronize the keypad, it's going to have, instead of F1 equals fire or F2 equals police or whatever, it's going to rename that button garage door in this example. Now what the single button press does, if when I hit F1, if I hit single button, I've got single button ticked, when I hit F1, what's going to happen is just going to activate and open the garage door or pulse the output to shut the garage door. If I untick single press, what's going to happen when I push F1, it's going to say, it'll then prompt on the keypad, you're about to activate garage door. Are you sure you want to do it? And if you do, you've got to hit F1 a second time. Again, it's as a prompt is that you might be wanting to lock or unlock the front gate, but you've accidentally hit the button to turn the sprinkler system on out the back, and out the back you're having a barbecue with friends around. You don't want to accidentally lock the front, thinking you're locking the front gate, only to find out you've turned the sprinkler system on by mistake and flooding everyone. So you can don't put single press on, you hit F1 and it says, this is what you want to do. You're sure that's the right one? Yes, I do. Bang, you can press it. So you can turn them on and off, and you do those for all 6 function buttons. If we go across to zones now and quickly look at the zone programming, is that we're looking 16 zones at a time. So in this example, our first 16 zones, I've got a wireless expander. Another 16, I've got a second wireless expander. And if I had another hardwire, it would have hardwired zones and so on for the various groups that I've got. Like all the programming, from here I can see the zones, zone 1 to 16, what the zones are currently programmed at, what the definition, so I can get a view of them all, or I can expand and go to one zone at a time and program that zone, one zone at a time. So let's have a quick look at the programming. Give the zone a name. As default, it was just called zone 1. We change it to whatever it is. In this example, it's front door. How I want that door to work. On an example, if it's a front door, I'd want to make it an entry-exit zone. It could be instant. Burglar interior. It's an internal PIR. It's a interior follower, which is like a handover zone. I want that to be a night zone, a night delay zone, a fire alarm, smoke detector, or whatever the zone is. It can be a non-alarm. If we program it as a non-alarm, it means it's active in the system, but it's not going to generate an alarm when the zone goes off. As an example of that, hinted at it before, is we want to turn chime on and off. And out the back, I had a switch in the kitchen area of this business. Customer goes out the back to get some lunch. They want to know if a customer comes in, they can hit the zone or hit the switch out the back, activates the zone, and the zone can be programmed as a non-alarm. So it's still in the system, knows if it's sealed or unsealed. And then we can write a rule when we get down to the automation rules. Whenever that zone goes unsealed, do something. Example, put it into chime mode. Whenever that zone becomes sealed again, then take the chime mode off or whatever. So non-alarm means it's still active in the system, but it's not going to generate a intruder alarm from there. So in this example here, I'm going to make my front door an entry-exit zone. Is it programmed for end of line? Is it programmed for normally open, normally closed? Is it programmed for 3-state or 4-state monitoring? So they're the conditions that we've got. I'm just going to say it's set for standard end of line, belongs to area 1. So when area 1 is armed, it's going to be armed. Other criteria, is it going to be a silent alarm, a hold up under the desk? Can it be bypassed? Is it a PI? Is it a forced arm zone? For example, is it a PIR looking at that keypad? Then you might say, yes, I want it to be forced armed. Usually a forced arm is a zone that could be unsealed when the customer's near the keypad. If it's a back door, back window, manhole, then you probably say don't force arm because I want the back door shut or the warehouse shut before we can arm the system. You select those areas. We can also give it a name, and to set voice up in an M1, at the moment as default that would say zone 1. From the drop down list we get 400 odd words that, as we see, we can scroll up and down we can pick to select. And I've got to tell you, out of 400 words, very hard often to find the word that you're looking for, so you might have to do a workaround. But example, if I want to type in A, it'll bring all the words up starting with A. If I change it to F for front door, it brings up all the words starting with F. If I then type in R, it brings all the words up starting with F and then R. In example, I've got freeze and front. Okay, so I'll select front and I do the same with door. So now what will happen as example is if the front door wasn't, if it was a back door, for example, and it wasn't set for forced arm, when the customer arms it, goes to arm the panel, it would say on this example here, front door violated. So it knows the name of the zone. It would read what's in here. And I can build up to 6 words to make the phrase. Front door or living room motion detector. So if, I could type in there ally for living room, M, all the words, MO, motion, DE for detector. Okay, so living room motion detector. So now when the customer went to arm, if it was unsealed, it would come up living room motion detector violated. If they do a walk test, if you put it in walk test mode and they walked around, as they open the front door, it would say front door. They went into this particular zone here, zone 1, it would say living room motion detector. So if you've got it all programmed, then you're doing a walk test and you open the front door, it says front door. You walk into the living room and it said warehouse roller door, then you know, well, something's wrong. Something's programmed wrong or wired wrong because I'm in the living room and it's coming up with the warehouse motion detector, warehouse door. You know there's something wrong straight away. You can fix it, either fix it in programming or fix it in wiring. So that's how you get the words associated. So you do that for all your zones. Quickly just cut off here. We go down to global, for example. global is that, first of all, I should mention, whenever you are programming a brand new panel, the RP software is written in the States. The M1 panel is made in Australia, and we program the Australian defaults into the panel as you get it out of the factory. So when you connect to the panel for a brand new installation, you'll get conflicts, and the conflicts will be the starter base in the software has got the US defaults in, the panel has got the Australian defaults in. So whenever you get the panel, the programming, I'd always recommend upload from the panel, receive data to the database. In other words, from the system to the database. And that way you'll get all the Australian defaults put into your panel. So as an example, you'll get 12-hour format. The date format will be day, month. It'll be set for Celsius. The daylight savings will be set for Australian daylight savings if you're using daylight savings in the city you're in. It will be Australian telephone interface, not US, so you'll get all those sort of things. But this is where you can change it. If you don't want 12-hour format, you can change it to 24-hour format, and other various options in there. I don't want a 4-digit code. The customer wants a 6-digit. So every code has to be 6 digits rather than 4. You've got the option to select. So what we looked at before, on all zones, users were individual. We're now looking at global settings. So that sets the global up. But you can see how easy it is to program, select the options you want. If we go telephones, there'll be no telephones there. I can then go new. I want to add, how many telephones do I want to add? I want to add perhaps 2 telephone numbers. We can add up to 8. When I add a telephone, okay, so if I went to telephone, whatever I thought I added. Bear with me. There we go. Okay, so I've got 2 telephones in there. Telephone 1 will be always report to this number. And if it's going, for example, to a control room, telephone number 2, where it says always report to this number, I would change that, report this number as a backup. When I change it to a backup and I go back to here, everything is grayed out. I can't program it because we've got another program as a backup to it. So what you need to do is go and change it back to always report, ungraze it out, finish all your programming, and then say it's a backup. But on this example here, if it's going to go back to a control room, I give it a name. As an example, Nest control room. Got 16 characters. I just put Nest control room, so we're not playing any favoritism between any other commercial premises that are out there. The control room primary phone number that we'll put in, 1300 such and such. What reporting format? So under reporting formats, the 2 main reporting formats that we use nowadays is contact ID to a control room, or voice message if it's going to go back to someone's mobile phone and give them a voice message. More and more people aren't using voice messages now. If they're going to do it, they just don't even use the dialer. They'll just use the push notifications. But in this example here, I'm going to say it's going to go to Nest control room, and we had a 1300 phone number in there. It's going to go report to the control room and contact ID. How many dialing attempts? I want to report everything to the control room. And then we've got our various areas. So let's say we've got the building split into 4 areas. I can go to 4 different control rooms if I wished. But let's say, as this example here, I'm going to go to whenever there's an alarm in area 1, I want it to report on client account number 1111 as an example. Any alarms in area 2, I want it to report on client account number 3421. Okay, so any alarms on area 1 will report to that control room, that phone number in contact ID, and shows that client account number. Any in area 2 will go back to that control room on that client account number. Any on area 3, I can still put the same client account number. And area 4, I'm going to leave it. I don't want to have, because maybe area 4 is another business on that system, a tenant, for example, and they're on a contract with another control room, so they can't go back to this control room. So we're going to leave area 4 all set at 0. So it's not going to report to area 4 alarms to that control room. I'll now select another control room and say always report, and I'll just put in here, okay, it's another, I spelled right, another control room, and it might have whatever phone number it's using to dial out. Again, we want to report on contact ID. On this example here, I don't want areas 1, 2, and 3 reporting here because it's going to go to the other control room. But area 4, that tenant was under a contract, he might be put a number in there, and now only area 4, because it's got a client account number, is going to report to that other control room. The other 3 areas are going to report to that control room. Just as an example of how you get it to report to various control rooms, and also what you have to put a client account number in that the control room will issue you. If I want to report to a mobile phone or to another landline to do self-monitoring, program it much the same way. I change it up here and just put it Greg's mobile, for example. I put in my phone number, 0408. It's not my mobile number, so don't ring it. And I put the reporting format. I want it to dial a voice message to me. So when I do voice message, you'll notice that all these options have left because we don't need a client account number when it's ringing my mobile number. We don't need any other information because we program it under the automation rules, which we're about to have a look at, of what you want it to report, what you want it to say when it does report, etc. So we just set that up. So at the moment I have got in here still a mobile number and also a landline, which I left for client account number 4. I took the other one. So when an alarm occurs, it can ring the control room and ring the mobile phone number at the same time. Well, obviously one after the other, but straight away. If I go down now, have a look at automation. So under automation, so all the programming we've done so far, in theory, can be done on the keypad. A lot easier to do it from the software, but can be done on the keypad. Under automation, the first options we're going to set up is for getting it ready to do the grand finale under rules at the bottom. So as an example, if I click on tasks, we've got some pre-programmed in our system. This is just giving it a name only. Example, projector down, projector up, screen down, movie time as a task or a scene, water the gardens, turn all the lights off is a task or a scene. What the show button does, it does, do you want to show this on the keypad or on the apps under the list? As an example, projector up, projector down. We've got a motorized projector in our training room. We hit a button, that projector comes out of the ceiling, it goes back up in the ceiling. We've got show, so on the keypads and on the apps, etc., it's going to show up on the button on that app as being there. If I don't tick the show button, for example, screen up, screen down is not ticked, then it's not going to show on the keypad. That button won't be there. On the app, it's not going to be there because you don't want the customer to be able to use it and operate manually. So you don't put the show button if you don't want it to show on the app. And then you've got a voice description. If I was to tick on that, tick on the voice, down the bottom it will show up like we did with the zones. 6 words to make a phrase. On this example, we've just got overhead down. So when we activate the task, if I was to go, we've taken it out of here, but let's say the sprinkler system, we can put in here water system activated. So I've made 3 words up to say water system, and let's change that to sprinkler. So when we activate the task, water garden, it's going to say via the speakers, sprinkler system activated. So if I use the app, if I use the keypad and activate that task, it's going to then say sprinkler system activated, so it gets voice acknowledgement back that we know it's happened. If I don't have a voice in there, like the waterfront lawn, for example, there's nothing in there. So when I activate that task, it's not going to say anything. So you got the choice, do you want it to say or not? Now, this doesn't program what you want it to do when that task is activated. All it's done is effectively given it a name, and do you want to show it on the button? The same for the lights. Do you want to give it a name? Give the name a light. The other one around. Give the light a name. What format? If it's going to go to something like CBus lighting systems, then it will be set the format, the serial expander. We want to send data out. If it's just an on-off relay to turn a light on and off, it's just a standard format. It can either be a dimmer, so the options you really have, it's an on-off switch or a dimmer. Really, they're the 2 options you have, on-off switch or dimmer. So if it's, for example, a CBus dimmer, you can then select that, and then under the app, under the keypad, you've got the option to be able to dim the light up and down. If it's an on-off switch, then you've only got the on or off buttons. If you programmed it as a dimmer, and it's really just not like a relay, an on-off switch, when you go to try to dim it and you get above 1%, it just automatically turns on because it's not a dimmer controller. The option box recommended now, turn the option on for all of them. It's an option in there that under the older technology, it puts a delay in from activating from one. If you're programming a scene that you want to turn light 1 on, then light 2 on, then light 3 on, then light 4 on, when the option box is not selected, there'll be a delay, but option light 1 will turn on, then there'll be delay, then light 2 will turn on, then there'll be delay, and 1.5 second delay, then the lights turn on. When the option box is selected, there's no delay. For example, if it's going to CBus, we'll send the command out, turn light 1 on, light 2 on, light 3 on, light 4 on, and then CBus would activate from that. Same as we did before. Do you want to hit the show? Do you want that light to show on a keypad, on the app? And do you want a voice description that you can use later on? Again, we've just given it a name. The other thing is, if you've programmed, for those who can program CBus, for example, and you put a CBus in your system, you've programmed all the lights under group addresses for CBus. Incidentally, our light number, this is the M1 light, is light 1 all the way down to light 255 or 256. On the screen, we're showing light 1 to 37, and we scroll down and so on, light 55. That links up because it's one of the most popular lighting systems still on the market today is CBus. Light number 5, for example, is our light 5 is CBus group address 5. Our light number 15 is CBus group address 15. Okay, so it's linked up. Now, because you've already programmed CBus using the CBus toolkit, and you've named all the lights in CBus, you don't want to have to do them again in the M1. So we do have an import facility. If you right mouse click on lighting, import lighting data, and you've got some options here. You can import from Universal, the ISY format, if you're putting one of those systems in. You can import UPB, and in this case, you can import from CBus or Lutron. We select we want to import from CBus Toolkit program. We want to leave all the existing ones there that we've already done. We want to leave perhaps all the show buttons already done. I go and navigate to where my CBus, I haven't got CBus Toolkit on this computer, but I CBus to the XML file where under my CBus Toolkit, which is usually under the tag file, I think, folder, I believe. So you go to that folder for this particular customer, set the option box for all devices, leave the voice description. When I hit import, bang, it programs it within 1 or 2 seconds. Okay, so it's a nice quick way of importing from the CBus Toolkit straight into the lighting, or if you're doing a Lutron, which is sold in Australia as well as elsewhere in the world, you can import that database because you've already programmed it in Australia already, or for it. We go to outputs, exactly the same. We give the output a name. Do you want to show it in the button? Do you want to give it a voice description? Even though we can have 208 outputs on the system, you can only name the first 64 names, 64 with names. Beyond that, it's fixed at output 65 to output 208. Okay, not very often do people have more than 64 outputs, so it's not usually an issue, but only the first 64 can have names or custom names. Sunrise, sunset, this is where we can set where this system's getting installed. As an example, let's select a city. So in this here, we're selecting what country you're installing the system at. We're installing it in Australia. We're installing it in Victoria. And then you've got some regional cities in Victoria to be more precise. But I'm going to say I'm installing it in Melbourne. And that's the latitude and longitude for Melbourne. So we select use these settings. Okay. And then we have to hit the calculate button. Down here, it tells us when sunrise and sunset for any day. If I was to go in, for example, June the 1st, sunrise is going to be at the moment 6:26 and sunset at 6:09. But for this to be accurate, after we've set the city up, we then hit calculate. When I hit calculate, it then sets them properly, which incidentally I've done it previously. So it tells us exactly when sunrise, sunset. So sunrise is at 6:26. However, in the middle of summer, sunrise is at 5:01. If we've got daylight savings enabled, and it was 1 hour daylight savings, the system still says it's 5:01 sun time. But if you said, I want the car park light to turn off at sunrise, it would turn off at 6:01. It says it's turn off at 5:01, then add 1 hour for daylight savings. It knows that it's actually 6:01 is the time and 5:01 sun time. It automatically adds that hour for you. Okay, so we're setting up again the system get ready to be used. Let's skip the ones and we go straight down to rules. And we've already got some rules written in the M1 already in this particular panel. But to write a rule in the system, we then click on the new button. I want to add a new rule. And when we write a rule, every rule has to have a whenever and a then. Whenever something happens, then do this. Okay, so you have to have one whenever and one then in a rule. You've then got an option of an and. Whenever something happens and the condition is this, then activate this. So as an example, whenever the garage door opens, then turn the garage light on. Okay, nice and simple. Whenever the door opens, I'm driving in, turn the garage light on for me. Whenever I open the front door, in other words, whenever zone 6 becomes unsealed, then turn the front porch light on. Okay, a couple of nice simple rules. The trouble with that is that the garage light's going to turn on in the middle of the day. The front porch light's going to turn on in the middle of the day. So then I can add an AND in the function. And that can be, for example, whenever I open the front door, in other words, whenever zone 6 becomes unsealed and it's dark outside, and it knows it's dark or light outside because sunrise and sunset. So after sunset, it knows it's theoretically dark outside, and after sunrise, it's light outside. So I can put whenever zone 6 is activated, the front door's open, and it's dark outside, then turn the porch light on. So if I open the front door 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it knows it's before sunrise, it's not dark outside, so it knows not to turn the porch light on. Nice simple rule. Now I can have effectively as many ands in the rule and as many thens, but a rule can only consist of one whenever. So as an example, whenever I open the front door and it's dark outside and the security system is disarmed and the front gate is locked and this and this and this, then turn the front porch light on, then do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. Okay, so I can have multiple thens to do. Under the AND section, as soon as one of them is false, the rule stops and won't activate the thens. So whenever I open the front door and it's dark outside, yes, it's 11 o'clock at night, so yes, it's dark, and the security system is disarmed, yes, tick, because I'm home, I've just opened the front door, and I'm trying to think of another, and the temperature is greater than 20 degrees Celsius. And in my example, when I opened the front door, it was only 15 degrees Celsius. So it says, yes, it's dark outside. Yes, the security system's disarmed. Is it greater than 20? No, it's not. So it stops and it won't activate that rule. So again, you can write whatever you want to do at that time. To write the rule, you simply click on whenever, and then you get a list of everything that can occur on a system. Whenever the time of day equals, whenever it's sunrise, it's sunset, whenever an hour equals, a minute equals, every 1 second. So as an example, I might want to have an access control. Whenever the door is open too long, then I want to bring up a warning, door open too long alert. So I can say, whenever every 1 second and that door is open, then add 1 to a counter, because I've got in here somewhere set a counter, and in there I can add to the counter a value of 1. So every 1 second and the front door is open, add 1 to the counter. Then I can write another rule. Whenever that counter is equal to or greater than, a set number, let's say 20 seconds or 20, in this example would be 20 seconds. So whenever that counter gets to 20, then activate an output that might bring a buzzer to say that the front door's shut. Then I write another rule. Whenever that zone of the front door becomes secure, then set that counter back to 0 again. Okay, so you can see you can build up to whatever you want. So all the security functions are built, but all these automation functions, anything else you want to do. So you can do it based on a time. You can do it based on a particular zone. Can be not secure, secure. When you bypass a zone, you unbypass a zone, you can get the rule to do something. You can get it whenever an output changes. So whenever an output turns on or turn off, and you select what output it is. So whenever an output turns on or off, get it to do something. whenever a keypad function button is pushed. Remember I said under the keypad, function buttons 1 to 6. Let's disable it under the keypad unless it's something like police, fire, and medical. We can enable it here. So I can put whenever F1 on any keypad, or let's say on a specific keypad, which was my navigator keypad because I disabled it from there. Whenever F1 on that keypad is pressed, then do something which could be turn an output on, and it might be the output for the warehouse door. Turn that on for 2 seconds because we just need a pulse to open it, another pulse to close it. So whenever we hit F1, it will then pulse output 6, which opens the garage door. Whenever I hit F1, I'll give a pulse that could close the garage door, for example. If I wanted to put an AND in there, let's just leave that rule there. Whenever I push F1, then activate that output to open the garage door. I can add an AND in there, and that zone warehouse, oops, click the right one, and the warehouse main door is not secure. So whenever I push, let me clear that, whenever F1 is pushed and the warehouse door is not secure, in other words, the roller door is up, then it's going to pulse it to bring it down. Or I can do it the other way around, change that and make it secure. So now what happens, whenever I push that and the garage door is closed, let's open the garage door. If I took the AND out, then it's going to activate all the time. If I put the AND on in this example, it's only going to open it or close it based on the condition. Okay, so you can see that if I then want to AND something else and turn the, oops, wrong one. Want to go to lighting, control an individual light. I don't know if I've got a warehouse one in there. And turn on for a period of time. Okay, so whenever I push F1 and the garage door is secure, then we're going to pulse the garage door to open, and we're going to turn that light on for 5 minutes. And at the end of that 5-minute time, the light will automatically turn off without you doing anything. So you can see we can build multiple thens, then do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, and whenever I hit that and that's secure, it's going to do all these functions. I can also put comments in there. Why did I write this rule? Because you want to remember later on why you did it. And I can just put here, this rule was to open door. Okay, so as an example, this rule was to open the door and turn a light on. So now, and I'll put a space before that comment. Okay, so now what will happen is under my list of rules, it gives you the comment there, and that's what the rule did. You notice all the ones we've done here, they're all kind of read into each other. If I wanted to, I could go to this rule here, open it, and you can see what it is, and I could just put a space in there without a comment. Okay, so now what we've got a group of rules, another group of rules, and it's space, so you know you could put it in a comment, something like this group does this, example. Okay, so this group of rules is going to do this. This individual rule does that. So you can see where we can actually put comments for those rules. So getting back to our rules again, so as we said, that any zone, a function button, a key fob button. If you had a wireless radio key, whenever button 1 is pressed and the user was Greg, then activate output 10, open my side of the garage door. Then you write another rule. When button 1 is pushed and the user
was Mrs. Gregg, then activate output 12, which then opens the wife's garage door. So you can have different buttons on the radio keys doing various functions. If you don't put the AND in, anyone's button F1 is going to activate that same output. When a light turns on and off, you can get it to do something. For example, you've got CBus, and when a CBus group address light turns on, then you can say, right, whenever that CBus light number 4 turns on in the training room, then pulse this output to open and shut the garage door, or to speak or send an email, or to do whatever you want it to do. So the rules can be that. Automation task. Remember, we set automation tasks up over here under automation. We had one that was movie time, for example. So I can say whenever task movie time gets activated, so maybe on the app you activate the task movie time, on a keypad you activate movie time. By Google you say activate task movie time. It will activate. So we can say whenever movie time's activated, then we could say then activate output, turn the projector on for X amount of time, open the curtains, shut the curtains, output, then dim the lights, then do this, then do that, then do this, then do that. And so by activating the one task, we then get it to do the multiple things. So this is in rules where we added the tasks in, you say what you want the task to do. So whenever the task is activated, whenever the security system is disarmed, whenever it's armed in a particular mode, when it's armed in away mode, and we select what area. Okay, so whenever a security system is armed, disarmed, day alert, whenever the entry delay or exit delay starts or stops, whenever access is granted at a particular keypad because someone's badged the card there that's valid and got a user code, whenever access is granted, then pulse that output off that door for 5 seconds to unlock the door. So anything that occurs. Miscellaneous. We can have other, such as whenever the telephone line is ringing. So whenever someone is ringing into the panel, even with a 4G dialer, someone's ringing into the 4G dialer and the phone line's ringing, then maybe flash a light because it's a panel beat and they can't hear the light, the phone ringing. So whenever their telephone's ringing, flash this light so they know the phone's ringing, to put down the machines and go and answer the phone. So anything occurs on the system, you can get it to do something. When a counter gets to a certain value, when a thermostat, someone goes to the communicating thermostat on the Daikin system and sets the temperature to 25 degrees, then do something on here. Could be anything you like. The AND functions, again, the qualifier, when something happens and it's a time of day and it's relative to sunrise, sunset, and it's every set months, or we could do the other one, and the date is, so you could say, right, and the month is equal to 6 months, in other words, June, then do something. As an example of that, you can put in there whenever the hours equals, so I can put in there whenever it is 3 p.m. So at 3 p.m. and the day of the month, the month equals the 6 months. Let me get a day, might help. Sorry, get the dates. No, that's right. We can just do the month anyway. So whenever it is 1 p.m. in June, any day of June, we can add a day in there. Every day. Okay, so we're saying that when it's 3 p.m., get rid of that one. I put it in twice. 3 p.m. And it's any day of the week in June. Then we can perhaps ping text to the keypad and say, your system's due for service. You know, contact security or something. So, and we can put a day and a year in there, might have helped as well. And it's going to be 2021. Okay, so any day in June in 2021 at 3 p.m, the text is going to come on the screen and say your systems needs a service. And they will then ring you and say, the keypad's showing up, I need a service. Like your car, when a car comes up, it's due. So you know that June next year, if you put a system in now, June next year, it's going to come up on the customer's keypad that they need a service. They're going to ring you to come in and do a service. If they ignore it, everything's still going to run fine, but you're going to have this annoying message on their screen until you go in there. So what happens is that you go and service a system, you make sure everything's fine. You can then go along and just change that. 2 years' time, 2023, in June, the same thing is going to occur. In 2023, it's going to be the message. They'll be ringing you up for service every 12 months, 2 years. So they know the system's running in tip-top. They're not just going to forget all about it. So you've got qualifier and the input, the output, the last user light, and the security system is armed, it's disarmed, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of qualifiers, and the system can do whatever you want. Whenever something happens, automatically arm the system. So at 8 p.m. at night, if the customers forgot to arm the system, 8 o'clock at night, you write whenever the time is 8 p.m., then automatically arm away particular area, and you can put after, say, a 10-minute, put 10 minutes in there. Okay, so whenever something happens, tagging on there, then arm the security system after 10 minutes. So what'll happen, if the rule was whenever the time is 8 p.m. at night, then arm the system after 10-minute warning. So what will happen, the system will, via the speakers, will say the system will automatically arm in 10 minutes. Keypad beeps for a minute. The system will automatically arm in 9 minutes. Beeps, system will arm in 8 minutes. Counts down. So the customer, if they're working back late at night, it's not going to arm the system on them. It's automatically going to give them a message, a warning. They can go to the keypad. They can extend it. So each time on the keypad will say, your system's going to arm in 8 minutes or whatever time it's up to. Then they can hit the extend button. There's a button will be on the thing. Extend. Every time they hit the extend button, will give them another 10 minutes. They want to work back an extra hour, they go extend, 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 extend for 6 times. Gives you an extra 10 minutes each time. Another hour's time, it will then start counting down again. If they just want to stop it from auto-arming, then what they do is they just arm it and disarm it. Okay, so it gives them a nice warning when something happens. Turn a light on and off. You can get it to speak. You can send text out of a port, send text to a keypad. So whenever a zone is sealed, we can count the number of cars coming into into the car park. Another zone becomes unsealed, count the number of cars going out there, and then we write a rule. Whenever the count gets to a certain amount, send text to the keypad saying there's 22 cars in the car park, for example. We can enable, disable chime. So really anything that can occur on a system, we can get it to do something on the system, etc. Once you've programmed all that, then what we can do is, if we're programmed it offline, like I have, I'm not connected to the panel. You notice down the bottom it's got red, not connected. I can then connect to the panel. I'm going to connect via the Ethernet module, as long as no one else is on the company's got it. I want to connect via the network. And if I want to go up and see how to connect, which might have helped in the first place, what we need to do is go to Setup, Communication. And if I'm going to connect via Direct Connect via RS-232 to USB, I first of all select in here my COM port. On this computer here, I've only got one COM port. So if I had a USB to RS-232, it would come up what comms port it is. That's the one I'm going to connect to. So you've got to first of all tell it what port to connect to. And then what if I was connecting, I would connect, I'm on site, I want to connect via the USB converter, and it automatically knows to go out on comms 1 because that's what we selected. On my example, I want to connect via a URL. And what I have to do, because on my computer, I've got wireless and a LAN connection. So it's got to know which one do you want me to connect to, on the wireless or the LAN. So I need to go up here to options, network adapters, and it says my LAN is on 192.168.2 network. My wireless is 192.168.0 subnet. So I want to go out on my wireless link to connect to my panel. And I put in the IP address of the Ethernet module for my M1. If you don't know what that is, I can scan for it. Oops, bring it on the other screen. So I can bring this up. It just gives you an introduction what to do. But if I go find, it's scanning my network and brings all the M1s up. So it's bringing all the Ethernet modules it's found on my network. I've found one in the training room, one in the Melbourne showroom, and one in Aaron's development system, and what the IP addresses are. I want to connect to the training room, tells me what the IP address is, and I'm on the right subnet, on the 0 subnet. So I want to use selected, and there it is, we've got that. And now I want to go connect, and I want to connect locally. I'm going to connect on a network. So when we connect, it will go out. It's connecting, it's verifying, it's connected, it's verifying the system. It's now checking for conflicts. And down the bottom here, it's found some conflicts. So it said, if I hit OK on where there's conflicts, it's saying these are all the things that it's found here is what's different from what's programmed into the system to what's programmed in my database. And I think, gee, I didn't think there was so many. So what I can do, if I click on each one individually, click on that and view the differences with that button there. In the system, that's what's programmed. In the database, that's what's programmed. And that makes sense because I was playing with it before. So I want to receive to the database or send it to the system. I want to receive from the database to the database. In other words, from the panel, send it to me. And if I know all the others are going to be in the same boat, I can select them all and send them all to the system or receive to the database. So I'm going to receive them all to the database. I can't receive telephone 1 because it was never in the panel. I added it in here, so that's fair enough. Same for telephone 2. Oops, I'll bring that across. It's showing you what's happening. So we've got 2 telephones there that, remember, we added them before for the training. So we can't upload them. So now what I can do, I can then send them to the system. And we're now clear. Everything in my database and the system is identical to each other. Okay. If I want to connect, we got rid of that rule that I added because I received it to the database. But if I want to activate one of these tasks, let's see which one I can add. Let's say, for example, add a new one. Whenever F6 on any keypad is activated, then I want to control I'm going to toggle my office light here. Okay, so I've selected that. I send to the system. Okay, so we've now got that rule down the bottom. Put a few spaces, separate them from the other rules. Okay, so it's that rule right down the bottom. Now, because I don't want to go into the training room where the keypads are, I can activate them from here. And I can test that rule. Okay, send that off. I want to test that rule, and it turns my office light on, toggle it again, turns it back on again. Because we've got a CBus network, the CBus will send the data out of the same port the Ethernet module's connected to. But a little trap is that because we're connected on RP, when RP's connected, it stops all the data from going out of that port. Okay, because it says RP programming has priority, so I'm not going to send any data out of that port. So if I want to get data sent out of that port to CBus, I have to disconnect with RP because it's blocking the data, and now I can send that out. What I'm going to do is just bring across. We have a software package called M1-to-Go. And M1-to-Go software, it's a software we can run on our computers. The customer can manage the system from his computer, or it's great for testing like we're about to do now on the system. Okay, so I've set, I've got a phone line fault because it says if I synchronize. Okay, so we've got everything set there. If I go to outputs, at the moment that training room output is on. Let me go bring one other thing up. Bear with us for a moment. So I can show you that I am not lying. Well, let's bring a camera up in there as well. Bring some cameras across. Okay, so there's the training room in there, which is good. We'll turn the light off on someone who's working in there. Graham's in there at the moment. And I'll bring my M1-to-Go up. And we go to lighting. And there we go. The training room light's on at the moment. We can see the stairs is on at the moment as well. Maybe I won't upset Graham. Let's bring the stairs up. Have I got stairs in here? Don't have stairs, okay. Oh, yes, we do. They're right in the middle. Make sure no one's walking up the stairs. So it's a good test tool. For testing that, I can then turn that light off, and we see the light in the stairs turn off. See the light turn back on again. Probably a bad example, purely because it's still fairly light when that's on. Let's do the training room. Turn the light off. And we turn the light back on again. So we can easily test things from there. If I want to arm the security system, I can do it from here as well. So navigate to keypad, 3, 4, 5, 6. Help if I arm that. Graham can see the system here. Let's select a different area. Okay, we can see the system armed. See the system disarmed. I can activate, the function button there. Just turn my office light off, but I don't have a camera in here, so I can do it and turn the light back on again. So from M1-to-Go, it's a great little tool that you can use. It's a free software that you could use for testing the system. To test the light on and off, put the pool pump on and off, whatever you want to do, from the system, turn lights on and off, etc. And so on. We want to turn the swimming pool lights on in our office. We can turn the swimming pool lights off. If it's a dimmer, I can dim them, and so on and so on. So a great little tool there for doing it. The last thing, because I know we've gone well over time, last thing I just want to show you is we've also got a high-level interface into our into NX Witness video verification system, or VMS. And what that can do, and I must admit I don't know if we've still got some rules set up in here for when we did it last time. Hopefully we have. We had set up, when I activate this output, it then brings the camera up full screen. Hopefully no one has changed that. Let's see, in which they have, because it obviously didn't work. Let's do another one. Bring that camera up full screen, and what I can do is, again, if it hasn't been changed, is I can put soft triggers on here to turn lights on and off, or activate or open a boom gate, for example. So we've set up a soft trigger, again, if it's programmed in here, that when I was to turns light off, it should turn the training room lights off. So I turn on the soft trigger on my NX, and I can turn a C-bus light off using the M1 as a bridge in there. So if I turn off, going to be a bad example, and it didn't turn on again. It didn't turn off. Wasn't planned for that demo, but yeah, obviously someone else has been playing around with it since and changed the rules, etc. On that. But we can do that anyway. So when something happens on an M1, so for example, if we had on any camera on the system, when something occurs, for example, if we get motion activated out in the warehouse, if that warehouse roller door opens, that warehouse roller door is connected to an M1, motion detector in there is connected into the M1. Whenever motion's activated, we can pop that camera up full screen. We can activate a PTZ. So if the PTZ, for example, let's just change that to, so for example, if our PTZ was around on the packing bench and someone had motion there on a different detector, if it then activated the roller door open, for example, then what we could do is do two things at once. We can then pop that up full screen, and we can automatically get the PTZ to whiz around to the roller door and see what's out, straight away. So it's working as an input and output using that, yeah. All right, so hopefully that gave you a really good overview of what the M1 is capable of programming, or first of all, what modules, some of the modules that can go onto an M1, how to wire the M1 data bus, which should have a start and an end. And when you've got a start and an end, you've got to put the link in for the start of the line and end of line. Again, that's standard RS485. It's not really anything special with the M1. If you're home running everything, there's two different types of data bus hub modules that you can use. Once you've got the data bus wired up correctly, you can then have the, you've got to address all the modules on the bus. Once they're all addressed, you go into programming and tell it to enroll the modules on the bus, which then puts them into the module, into the system. If something goes offline, then of course it's going to activate it. And then you can program the M1, how to operate it into various stay, home, away, write whatever function you want into the system. Anything occurs on a system, you can get it to do something else, turn lights on with a million different applications interface. Whenever we arm the security system, turn the air conditioning off on Daikin via the Coolmaster, and so on and so on. So as I said, hopefully that gave a great overview of the system, enough that when you're touching it, you've got half a thing. And what we've covered is probably only 25% of what an M1 can do. But hopefully it's a starting point of when you're getting a system up and going for the first time, it's not totally foreign to you. So I haven't seen any questions come in, but if anyone's got any questions, let me know. As I mentioned, I'll get this PowerPoint sent to you a copy of this video will be online for you to be able to view at any time. And then, yeah, look, if there's any questions you've got when you're getting your first M1, getting it up and going, or at any time putting your 100th M1 in, tech support's there. We can TeamViewer in on your PC, have a look at your database, have a look at what's maybe happening. One little handy hint, whenever you're writing the rules, you simply have to remember what's tripping the rule is a whenever. That is the secret when writing the rule. Whenever something happens, that's what's going to trip the rule. Okay, so when a rule is not working, always look at the whenever, or if you've got any ands in there, but the whenever is what's tripping the rule, no ands or then. They're just slaves of the whenever. So it's whenever the time occurs, whenever a zone occurs, whenever the output trips, whenever a light turns on, it will activate something else. That's the secret to where to start from. Yeah, so, sorry, it was questions I missed. Yeah, what's CCTV? That's NX Witness. So it's a VMS system that we sell, so it will talk to thousands of IP cameras. Obviously, Hikvision that we sell. So it will talk to that. It will talk to Hikvision TVI DVRs if you want. So you go to Hikvision DVR in, NX can still go there, totally manage the system. And the speed and in which it finds things, it's powerful. If I want to know, for example, the stairs here, and I want to know when somebody came up the stairs, I can simply go to Smart Search, draw in the search here, okay, and even though we've got recording 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, once I did that, down the bottom you may notice that we've now got some red line. If I expand that in here and scroll along, it will pick up every time there's movement. Let's go back a bit more. Here we go. So it will pick up whenever there's movement on a particular camera at a particular time. Let's scroll along here, 1 p.m. There's some movement here. I can automatically go to the next one. Go to the next one. Okay, it's picked up movement. And there might be 4 hours before there's movement again in there. So rather than sitting looking at any movement, it will automatically jump to the next one without me touching anything. As soon as that movement's finished. Okay, and it jumps to the next one, jumps to the next one, and so on and so on. So that's how quick we can look at footage or recall, the user can recall footage. And that could have been from 6 months ago. If you had hard drives there for 6 months, to find footage of what happened 6 months ago, that's how quick it is to be able to recall that, that footage there. You can do it either on movement, which is a Smart Search, thumbnails, or set a calendar up. And as I said, it searches it. So if you haven't seen NX, well worth looking at it. And just while we're at it, we've also got, that's just on the screen down the bottom here, count the number of people going into the office, the number of people going out. And if a certain amount of people come in, that will count up. We'll say there's, in this example, we've set it up, there's 12 people allowed in our office. This is just on a monitor that's got a TV playing next to it. In our office, we've set up 12 people. As one person walks in, it'll say there's 1 in, 11 more people can enter. 10 people have entered, 2 more can get in. When there's 12 people in the store, that comes up red, please stop, please wait for someone to exit. As 2 people go out, it then says counts 10, 2 people can come in, it goes back to green. So that's just a new little function that's available on the Hikvision NVRs now. But just I noticed that was on the camera there, so I thought I'd do a bit of cross promotion while we're activated. All right, so if there's no other questions at all, thank you very much for your time. I know that we went a little bit overboard, and hopefully I didn't rush through too much. But if you've got any questions at all, by all means, yeah, drop us an email. All right, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for your time.